"Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel." She didn't see me at first. She was too busy laughing. You know, the kind of laugh that makes your body lean forward and your hand rest on someone else's arm like it's second nature? That's what she was doing. Her head tilted, eyes closed, mouth wide open. Not because the joke was that funny, but because he was the one telling it. I was 3 steps away, close enough to smell her perfume. The same one she used to wear only on anniversaries. She hadn't seen me yet, and for a moment I didn't move. I just watched. I watched the way she looked at him like he was her favorite memory. I watched the way she stirred her drink with a straw she wasn't even sipping from. I watched the way her ring, the one I gave her, was missing from her left hand. And I realized, in that moment, that I wasn't part of her world anymore. Let me be clear. This isn't a love story. This isn't a cry for sympathy. This is the sound of a door closing, a chair scraping the floor, and a man finally standing still long enough to see what's always been there. I stepped forward. Still, she didn't see me. He leaned in, said something in her ear. She giggled and swatted at his shoulder like a teenager on prom night. And that's when her eyes lifted, just casually scanning the room, until they landed on me. That laugh? Dead. Gone. She froze. I didn't speak. I didn't smile. I didn't blink. I took one more step, just enough to reach the corner of their table. Then I placed the ring down. That was it. No shouting. No accusations. No theatrics. Just the quiet sound of metal against wood, and 1,000 things I could never bring myself to say. Her face went pale. His smirk slipped into something like confusion, then guilt, then fear. But I didn't wait for their reaction. I walked away, out of the restaurant, out of her life, out of the role I had played for far too long. And now I'm here, writing this from a half-lit motel room that smells like air freshener and secrets. I don't know what happens next. I don't have a plan. I didn't pack a bag. I just left. Because when a woman laughs like that with someone else, when she forgets you still exist, it's time to stop waiting to be noticed. This is not how our story began. But this is exactly how mine starts. I didn't rush. That's the part that surprises even me. I didn't storm out of the restaurant. I didn't push through the doors or demand she follow me. I just walked, past the hostess stand, past the valet, past a couple arguing about red wine and shrimp. No one noticed me, and in that moment, it hit me. I had become invisible long before I ever walked through that door. The street was buzzing with life. Neon signs, honking horns, and people living their Friday night. I felt like I was floating through it, not part of it. Just a ghost with a heartbeat. I ended up sitting on a cold bench across from a late-night flower stand. The woman selling roses looked at me like she wanted to ask if I was okay. She didn't. That was fine. I wouldn't have known what to say anyway. My phone buzzed. 10 times. Then 15. Her name on the screen. Again. 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 I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. What was she going to do? Deny it? Tell me I misunderstood the way her hand was wrapped around his? Say she was laughing at a sad joke? That the missing ring was just a coincidence? I'd already given her enough chances. I gave her everything, and she gave me less and less each year until I didn't recognize the woman I married anymore. Still, the little voice in my head, the one that always made excuses for her, started whispering. Maybe she was just drunk, it said. Maybe she was lonely. Maybe you were too cold lately, too distant. But I wasn't distant. I was desperate. Desperate to save something that was already ash. I noticed every change, every excuse, every late night. I even pretended to be asleep once, just to hear her unlock her phone in the bathroom and whisper, "Hey," to someone at 1:14 a.m. I didn't confront her. I just cried silently and held on to hope like a fool grips an umbrella in a hurricane. I pulled out my wallet and stared at a photo I hadn't looked at in months. The two of us in Maine 5 years ago. Her in that orange scarf she used to love. Me with my dumb, overgrown hair and hopeful grin. I looked so small back then. Not physically. Emotionally. Like a man who hadn't yet learned how heavy betrayal feels when it drips in slowly over years instead of crashing all at once. She called again. I turned the phone off. A taxi pulled up beside the curb. The driver looked at me, raised an eyebrow and asked, "You need a ride, buddy?" I nodded. "Anywhere but here." As the cab pulled away, I looked back through the rear window and wondered if she was still sitting there, staring at the ring I left behind, wondering if it was final, hoping it wasn't. But it was. It had to be. Because if I didn't leave now, I'd be stuck forever in a life where I was just background noise to someone else's main event. And for once, I wanted more than that. The cab dropped me off at a motel 3 miles from home. I didn't ask for a specific place. I just gave a vague, somewhere quiet, and let the driver pick. I paid in cash, asked for a room without windows facing the street, and didn't bother with the complimentary breakfast form the clerk slid across the counter. I wasn't hungry. My stomach had been in knots since the moment her laughter stabbed through me like a rusty nail. Inside the room, I sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like an hour, staring at the old carpet. The TV was on but muted. Some sitcom laugh track echoed through the wall from the next room, and for a second, I imagined Corinne laughing like that again. Carefree, light, unbothered, probably already rewriting the story in her head. It wasn't what it looked like, Miles. Why didn't you say something? You just walked away. I wanted to believe she was sitting there, regretting it all. But I've lived enough lies to know better. People don't regret betrayal. They regret being caught in the middle of it. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed again. I turned it back on out of habit. The screen lit up. Corinne. I didn't answer, but this time she left a voicemail. I stared at the notification for 10 straight minutes before finally pressing play. Her voice cracked on the second word. "Miles? Please." That was it. 2 words before she stopped talking. The rest of the message was breathing. Shaky. Uneven breathing like someone trying to hold back tears but failing miserably. And suddenly I hated her. Not for what she did. I'd been bracing for that for months. I hated her for how easily she pulled me back in with just 2 words. How the sound of my name still made something in my chest ache. I hated that even in the wreckage she caused, part of me wanted to fix it. As if it were just a misunderstanding and not a slow-burning fire she'd fueled behind my back. Couldn't sleep. I paced the floor. Thought about driving back. Thought about kicking down the door and demanding answers. But what was the point? Even if she cried, even if she begged, even if she said all the right things, what she gave that night wasn't just attention. It was joy, and it wasn't mine anymore. At 3:41 a.m., she sent a text. "We need to talk. Please. I'm sorry. Sorry." As if that word could reach far enough to pull me back. I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch the wall, but I've never been that kind of man. I've never broken anything except myself. So I grabbed the motel notepad and scribbled 3 words. "You chose him." I didn't send it. I just stared at those words until the ink bled through the paper. Because that was the truth, wasn't it? She didn't trip. She didn't get confused. She chose to laugh. She chose not to wear the ring. She chose to forget I existed. And for the first time, I was choosing something too. Distance. Silence. And maybe, just maybe, a future without her. I didn't go back home the next morning. I didn't even drive by. I knew what I'd find. Her pacing the hallway in that fake panic she rehearses so well. Maybe crying on the couch like a woman wronged. Crafting a speech about confusion and not meaning to hurt me. But the truth was, she meant every laugh, every look, every touch she gave him instead of me. People don't trip and land in someone else's arms. They walk there. Willingly. I sat in my car for over an hour, parked outside a little diner off the highway. I didn't eat. Just watched the steam swirl off the coffee and waited for the rage to hit. But it didn't. I wasn't angry, I was numb. Like my body was still trying to process that everything I had believed about our marriage was a lie dressed up in routine. My phone buzzed again. Not Corinne this time. It was my neighbor, Kelly. Just a simple text. "Are you okay? I saw your car wasn't in the driveway last night." Kelly had always been kind, quiet, observant, and far more aware than I'd given her credit for. Against my better judgment, I responded. "I found out about her and Bryce. Not even 60 seconds passed before my phone rang. I answered, expecting awkward silence or pity. But Kelly's voice came through sharp and low. "You mean last night?" Something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. "What do you mean?" She exhaled. "Miles, I wasn't going to say anything. It wasn't my place. But this didn't start last night. I've seen them. In your driveway. In your car. More than once." The words didn't make sense at first. I blinked, mouth open, nothing coming out. "I thought maybe you knew. Or didn't want to know," she continued. "But last week? Thursday. She came home around midnight. He dropped her off. They kissed. Not a goodbye hug. Not a see you later kind of kiss. It was slow. Familiar. I felt something slide out of me then. Like the last piece holding me together gave up and let go. She was using our life as the backdrop to cheat. Our front porch. Our car. Our bed. I didn't even want to finish that thought. I managed to thank Kelly for telling me, though I can't remember the words I used. Everything after that was white noise. I turned my phone off again. This time not to avoid her, but to avoid the part of me that still wanted to believe there was a way to fix this. Later that afternoon, I drove back to the house. Not to confront her. To gather proof. I knew she wouldn't be home. She had her weekly yoga class. I guess that's what she was calling it. I entered with the spare key, walked into our bedroom and opened her closet. Top shelf, back corner, just like always, her old shoeboxes. I pulled down the one marked receipts and manuals. She never used it for that. Inside, like a sick scrapbook, were things she never meant me to see. A necklace I didn't recognize. 2 movie stubs from a theater we never visited. A printed photo, slightly crumpled, of her and Bryce at what looked like a lakeside cabin. She kept souvenirs. Of him. Of them. Proof I never asked for, but now couldn't unsee. I sat on the floor, surrounded by the evidence of a life I hadn't been living, and it hit me. I'd been holding on to a ghost, to a woman who stopped loving me long before I noticed. And still, I missed her. God help me, I missed her. I stayed sitting on the floor for a long time, surrounded by the proof of her double life. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. I think I just sat there hoping I'd wake up, that the shoebox full of betrayal would vanish, that the photo of her in another man's jacket, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years, would turn to ash in my hands. But it didn't. It was all real. Too real. I kept asking myself one question, over and over. How long has she been gone? Not physically, she still came home. She still did laundry and left notes about milk and bread. But emotionally, mentally, her goodbye must have happened in small doses. Maybe the first piece of her left when I forgot our anniversary that one year. Or when I got sick and couldn't go to her sister's wedding. Or maybe none of that mattered. Maybe she just stopped wanting the quiet, careful man who loved her more than he ever loved himself. I walked out of the bedroom and wandered through the house like I was touring a museum of a life I no longer belonged to. The fridge still had the sticky note with her handwriting on it. Don't forget trash day. The bathroom smelled like her shampoo. On the living room armchair sat the scarf she always used when she claimed she was running to Target. I picked it up. It still smelled like her perfume, light, floral, expensive. And for some reason, that was the thing that broke me. I sank into the couch, pressing the scarf to my face, and finally let go. The kind of crying that doesn't make sound, just shakes. I felt ridiculous, like a child sobbing over a broken toy. But she wasn't a toy. She was the life I built everything around. The only person I ever let see the weakest parts of me. And she didn't just walk away, she laughed while doing it. After I pulled myself together, I grabbed a trash bag and started collecting everything from that shoebox. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet. I didn't want to confront her. I didn't want revenge. I just needed it all out of my house. Out of my sight. Out of me. Then I made the mistake of opening her laptop. I didn't mean to snoop, but it was already open on the kitchen table. Something told me to look. Something whispered that there was more. That what I'd seen was only the surface. She hadn't logged out of her messages. I wish she had. There were weeks, months of chats between her and Bryce. Nothing romantic at first. Just casual, work-related things. Then it shifted. Inside jokes. Late-night thoughts. Messages sent at 2:04 a.m. While I lay next to her, thinking she was asleep, I scrolled, scanned, stomach twisting tighter with every line. And then I saw it. A message from her. Just 2 nights ago. I think I'm going to end things with Miles soon. He deserves better. Or maybe he won't even notice. That was it. That was the line. The dagger. He deserves better. A classic line meant to sound kind, but all it meant was I'm done pretending. And the worst part? She was right. I didn't notice. Not really. I saw signs, yes, but I refused to believe them. I believed in her. In us. I thought love meant staying even when it hurt. Turns out, sometimes love means knowing when someone's already packed up and left. You're just the last to find out. I closed the laptop, took the bag of proof, walked out of the house I thought was mine. And for the first time in years, I had no plan. No wife. No lies to lean on. Just truth. And it burned. I didn't sleep that night. I tried, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile. The one she gave him. Not me. Not anymore. I lay on the motel bed, staring at the ceiling. The hum of the air conditioner the only thing keeping me from breaking completely. My phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark, but I could feel it buzzing even when it wasn't. I knew she'd be calling. I knew she'd be texting. And I also knew she wasn't sorry. Not for what she did, just for being caught doing it. Around 6 a.m., as the sky began shifting from black to gray, I decided I was done hiding. I turned my phone back on. The messages flooded in. 17 missed calls. 5 voicemails. 10 texts. Miles, please talk to me. I can explain. You didn't see the whole picture. Please just come home. Home. As if that word still meant something. As if I hadn't just torn it from my chest and left it bleeding on the floor next to a shoebox full of betrayal. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove back. Not because I wanted to see her. Not because I was ready to forgive anything. I just needed to hear how far she'd go with the lie. I needed to know if she'd actually try to salvage it with something other than crocodile tears and half-truths. She was already waiting when I pulled into the driveway. Standing on the porch, arms wrapped around herself like a little girl who'd been caught sneaking out. When I stepped out of the car, she took a step forward. Lips parted like she'd rehearsed the exact speech on loop all night. Miles, she whispered, voice trembling like she wanted to look vulnerable. Please. I held up one hand. Don't start with please. Just tell me the truth. She froze. I saw everything, Corinne. The photos. The messages. The nights he dropped you off in our driveway. I saw it all. So don't insult me with pretend confusion. Her mouth opened and closed, like a fish gasping for air. It was a mistake, she finally said, and I almost laughed. That word, mistake. Like she dropped a glass or missed a turn. Like falling into another man's arms was just an accident of timing. I stepped closer. You told him I wouldn't even notice. You actually typed those words. And maybe you were right. Maybe I wouldn't have. But now I have. And I can't unsee it. Tears welled in her eyes, but I saw them for what they were. A performance. A woman desperate to control the damage, not repair it. You were gone long before I left, I said, my voice quieter now. And the worst part? I still loved you through it, even when you came home smelling like lies. She reached for me. Reflex, maybe, or guilt. I stepped back. You don't get to cry now, I added. You don't get to fall apart when you spent so long breaking me in silence. She didn't fight me, didn't scream or deny it. She just stood there, unraveling in slow motion. I walked past her into the house and grabbed the trash bag of evidence I'd left behind. I didn't even look back. I took it with me. Not because I needed it, but because I didn't want her to have it. I didn't want her to rewrite the story later and pretend it wasn't real. On my way out, she whispered, "Can we at least talk?" I paused at the door and said, "We just did." Then I left. And this time I didn't turn around. The thing they never tell you about betrayal is that even after you walk away, after the door closes, after the last word is spoken, it still finds a way to follow you. I thought once I left that house for the last time, the weight would lift. Didn't. Changed. Shifted. From heaviness to hollowness. And I wasn't sure which felt worse. 2 days passed. I didn't hear from her. Not a single text, call, email, nothing. At first, I was relieved. I thought maybe she finally understood I was done. That I wasn't some gullible fool waiting in the wings to forgive and forget. But then, on the third morning, I got a knock at my motel door. It was her sister, Nora. We'd always had a distant but polite relationship. She was never exactly warm, but I never expected her to be cruel. So when I opened the door and saw her standing there with arms crossed and a cold look on her face, I didn't know what to expect. "You should talk to her," she said, skipping any greeting. "No," I replied. "I really shouldn't. She's not eating. She's barely sleeping. She's ruined Miles. She should have thought about that when she was busy ruining me," I said, trying to close the door. But Nora didn't move. "She made a mistake. Stop calling it that. It's not a mistake when it's months of lies. That's a choice, a routine." She hesitated, then pulled something from her purse. A small envelope. "She told me to give you this. Said if you don't want to open it, she'll understand. But she said it was her last card." I didn't take it. Nora set it on the table inside the room and left without another word. I stared at that envelope like it might bite me. My instinct was to burn it, rip it in half, pretend it never showed up. But I've always been the kind of man who needs answers, even when I hate the truth. Especially when I hate the truth. I opened it. Inside was a photo, a sonogram, and a sticky note with 4 words. "It's yours, I swear." Everything in me went still. My hands shook as I turned the photo over, half expecting it to be some sick manipulation. But the date was recent, and the name on the corner? Corinne L. Dalton. I felt dizzy. My first reaction wasn't hope. It was suspicion. Anger. How could she drop something like this on me now? After everything? Was this just a ploy? Another trick to pull me back in? But then another thought hit me like a truck. What if she's telling the truth? What if, in the middle of all this chaos and betrayal, she was carrying my child? I wanted to scream. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. I wanted to erase every memory of that night at the bar, that shoebox, that moment I placed my ring down and walked away. Because now everything was tangled. And worse, I didn't know how I felt about any of it. Would I be the kind of man who abandoned a child? Would I let her raise it with him? Would I allow myself to be dragged back into her orbit because of biology? I didn't sleep that night. My head spun in 1,000 directions. And somewhere between midnight and dawn, I knew I had to see her one last time. Not to forgive her, but to ask the one question that had been building inside me since the moment I saw that ringless hand touch another man. Was this the plan all along? I drove to her apartment the next morning with every intention of keeping my guard up. I told myself I'd stay calm, ask my questions, get clarity, and leave. I wouldn't fall for tears. I wouldn't be manipulated by softness. I rehearsed it in my head over and over like a speech before war. But nothing prepared me for the look on her face when she opened the door. She was pale, smaller somehow, like she hadn't just lost weight, but lost her center. Her eyes weren't dramatic or pleading, they were tired. She looked like someone who had finally realized what she'd thrown away. I didn't hug her. I didn't step inside. I stood in the doorway and held up the sonogram. "Is it real?" I asked, flat and cold. "Yes," she said, barely above a whisper. "And it's mine." She nodded. "I found out a week before that night. I was going to tell you, but everything spiraled." I didn't respond. Couldn't. The part of me that had always been careful, always quiet, always choosing her, he wanted to run. But the man standing there, broken but not destroyed, wanted to understand. "Why him?" I asked. "Why not just tell me you were done?" She wiped her face and said something I'll never forget. "Because I didn't want you to stop loving me until I was sure someone else would." That crushed me, but it also freed me. I stayed quiet for a long time. Then I said, "I'm not coming back to you, Corinne." Not like before. But if this child is mine, I'll be there. Not for us, for them. She nodded slowly. No begging. No bargaining. Maybe she finally understood. We arranged the first appointment. I asked for proof and she didn't fight it. A DNA test would come. In the meantime, I started looking for a new place. One with soft light and no ghosts in the walls. Weeks passed. The test came back mine. Somehow, that hit harder than everything else. Because even though she'd betrayed me, something good still grew in the middle of all that pain. A tiny heartbeat that hadn't asked to be part of any of this. And I wouldn't punish it for her choices. Now, months later, we're not together. But we're civil. We co-parent. I get updates. I attend appointments. And as strange as it sounds, I've started healing. Not because she changed, but because I did. I stopped waiting for someone to see me. I started seeing myself. And I'm going to be a father. A real one. The kind that shows up. The kind that never makes his child feel invisible the way I felt standing in that restaurant months ago. Funny how the worst night of your life can still lead you somewhere good. Thank you for watching Reddit Confessions. Have you ever heard a story where something painful turned into something unexpectedly meaningful? Let us know in the comments. Maybe a moment in history, your own life, or something that still makes you think. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories that don't hold back.